Well, in the previous video we talked about the dominant chord. We find how to understand if the chord built on the fifth degree is a dominant chord or it is not a dominant chord. But now the very important question that we will approach, the very important topic we will approach in this video is: why is it so important to know if we use a dominant chord or we could say not a dominant chord, so a simple chord built on the fifth degree of the minor key. So this one, the major chord, for example in the A minor key, this is the dominant chord built on the using the harmonic minor scale, and this is not a dominant chord. This is simply a chord below the fifth degree using the notes of the natural minor scale. So why it is so important to choose between one another? Because depending on which scale we are using, so depending on which of the two different chords we are going to use, we will give our succession of chords a different tonal sense, a different sense of tonality. So why it is so? So what does it mean to have a tonal sense, a strong or a stronger or a weaker tonal sense? So let's try this example, which will clarify, which will clear out everything about this aspect of the tonal sense, of the stronger or weaker tonal sense, depending on which of the two different chords we will use. So let's take as a first case the harmonic minor scale, in which we have, of course, the dominant chord on the fifth degree. So we already said that inside this chord we have, of course, the leading tone. So since we have the leading tone, there will be a very strong attraction from the leading tone to the tonic. So a very strong tendency, a strong tension that need to be resolved, to be resolved going up to the tonic note. And of course, this also applies to the chords, to the succession of chords. So from the fifth chord to the first chord, to the tonic chord. In this case, since inside this chord we have the leading tone, there will be a very strong tension, a very strong tendency to move towards the tonic, and this tendency is what makes we could say that this tendency is what makes a very strong sense, a very strong tonal sense. So the tendency of the chord to move, of the fifth chord, of the fifth degree chord, to move to the tonic chord, when we have a strong tendency, we will also have a strong tonal sense, because it will be very clear the key in which we are, because it will be very clear, we could say, all the different roles of the chord. This is a role that have the tendency to move to this, which is of course the center of gravity, we could say, of our system of relationships, of our tonality. So this is very important. In the case of a natural scale, of course, we don't have a dominant chord, but we only have a chord fifth on the chord, built on the fifth degree. So inside of this, we don't have, of course, the leading tone. We only have the natural seventh degree. So in this case, we don't have we could say we don't have a tension which is as strong as in the case of the leading tone. We have a weaker tension, which is of course not as strong as in the previous case. So in this case, we will have a weaker tendency to move from the fifth degree chord to the first degree chord, to the tonic chord. So this is This is weaker. We could say that this tendency to move in this way is weaker than if we have, of course, the dominant chord. You can listen to it and it is very clear. This is very strong as a succession. This is weaker. It is weaker, of course. So this aspect, the fact that we have a weaker tendency of moving, a weaker tendency to move from this chord to the tonic chord, give the song a weaker sense of tonality, a weaker tonal sense. So it is very clear, when we have a strong attraction from the fifth degree chord to the tonic chord, we will have a very if it is weaker, we have we could say a weak tonal sense. If it is strong, we will have a strong tonal sense. This is something very important, because we have in this way, depending on which kind of succession of chords or which kind of atmosphere we want to give our piece of music, we can choose, we can make a very clear choice by choosing one or the other chord. So this is a very essential aspect. So if we want to have a very strong tonal sense, we need a very strong attraction from the dominant, from the fifth degree to the tonic. So we will need to use this chord. If we want to have a weaker sense of tonality, a weaker tonal sense, we will use, of course, the natural scale. So it is very, very, very easy. So depending on which of the two scales we use, we will have a different tonal senses. Well, so, but there is another reason. Why, if we use the natural minor scale, we could say, a weaker tonal sense. And this is because the use of the natural minor scale, if we use the natural minor scale, we give our music, we could say, a tonal ambiguity. So it is not only the fact that we have something weak, a weak tonal sense. It is that we have also a tonal ambiguity. What do we mean? What do we mean by saying that there is a tonal ambiguity? And how can we use this in to have a higher number of tools, of course, because everything we learn, then we have to put into practice, we have to use it. We don't need, of course, only theory, but we need theory then to go to the practical use of everything we learn. So we said that we have a strong tonal ambiguity. Why? So in the use, of course, using the natural minor scale. Why it is so? Because if we take all the notes of the A minor, of the A natural minor scale, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, we know that, of course, all these notes are the same notes of the C major scale, of course, of the relative major. So the same also applies to the chords. So, in fact, in this case, all the chords that I have in using the A natural minor scale will be the same chords of the chords, of course, built on the C major scale. The only difference is that I start from a different degree. So, For example, in the C major key, using the C major scale, I have first degree, this chord, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh chord. So let's take a look at the A natural minor scale and its chords. So as a first degree, we have the A minor chord, which correspond to the sixth degree of the C major scale, of course. The second one of the A natural scale, the second degree chord, will correspond to the seventh degree of the C major scale. The third will correspond, of course, to the first degree of the C major scale. The fourth degree chord corresponding to the chord built on the fourth degree of the A natural minor scale will correspond to of course to the second degree of the second degree chord of the C major scale. Then of course the fifth degree of the A of the natural minor scale will correspond to the third of the major, and so on. The sixth of the minor will correspond to the fourth of a major, and the seventh of the natural minor will correspond to the, of course, fifth of the major. So this is why we have a very strong tonal ambiguity, because maybe we can start, if we want to write, for example, a song in a C major key using the note, using the A natural minor scale, maybe we can start from the first degree and we can say, okay, we start from the tonic. But then if we go on, all the chords that we use are the same chords of the C major scale. It is exactly the same. So it is not so clear if we are in an A minor key or in the C major key, because we are using the same succession of chords. The only, maybe it is not always this way, but sometimes, okay, we can start from the tonic chord, but then in a second moment we goes on, and then it is very difficult to understand if we are in the C major scale, in the C major key, or in the A minor key, because the chords are, of course, the same. And so it is not clear if I'm in an A minor key or C major key. And so it is. We have a very we have a very weak difference between one another. So if you want to have a very strong tonal ambiguity, we will use the chords, of course, built on the natural minor scale. So to summarize what we said before, if we want to have a very strong tonal sense, we have to use, of course, the chords built on the harmonic minor scale, because we have this strong relationship. If we want to have a weaker tonal sense, we will use the chords built on the natural minor scale, of course. But if we use the chord built on the natural minor scale, we also have in addition to the weak tonal sense, we also have a tonal ambiguity. Okay, so and this it is very important to understand that if we have a strong tonal ambiguity, we have something ethereal. Ethereal. It is not something very clear. So if we have, of course, the concept of tonal sense, it is strongly tied to the sense of tonal ambiguity. So we cannot make a very clear distinction between them. So of course, if we don't have a strong tonal sense, we also have a tonal ambiguity. Of course, they are tied together. But I want to clear out many different aspects. So not only the fact that we are using only this chord and this gives us a weak sense, a weak tonal sense, but also the fact that we are using also the same chords of the relative major key, and this of course is why this is the reason why we have this we could say this tonal ambiguity. So in this way we're going to have something ethereal, while in the case of the of a tonal clarity, we could call it as a difference of the tonal ambiguity as a tonal clarity. So using, for example, the harmonic minor scale, we will have something more clear, something linear, something sunny, we could say. Okay, so if we want to have an ethereal music, something which is not so clear, something not so linear, we can use, of course, the natural minor scale. And this is a very common solution that it is very commonly used in the pop music. So I mean that in the pop music, why maybe since this kind of chords, something they sound, we could say, too much classic, we could say. If we want to have something not too classic, too linear, we could have, in fact, something more ethereal, something more ambiguous, and so we can use, of course, the as in the pop music, of course, many chords built on the A natural minor scale or in the natural minor scale. Well, of course, another aspect that we have to focus, we have to point out, is this: we can have, sorry, we can use the natural minor scale. So we said that we have a tonal ambiguity. It is not clear. It is not so clear as if we were in the minor key or in the relative major. Okay, but this tonal ambiguity can be broken, can be immediately broken when we introduce the leading tone. So we can also have a situation in which we have different chords, various chords built on the natural minor scale, so an ambiguity, a tonal ambiguity, okay, something ethereal. But then, if we at the spot, if we use a chord which uses, we could say, inside of it we have the leading tone, we immediately break this tonal ambiguity in that moment, in that point, the song becomes more, we can say, become clearer, have a stronger tonal sense. So we can also have some variation during our song. So take as now, of course, let's take this example, because this is also theory. This is only theory. So we said that we use chords built on the natural minor scale, so a natural minor scale as usually. So first, second, third. Okay, so it is not as clear. It is not so clear. I'm in a very tonal ambiguity. It's a very ambiguous situation. So, but at this point, I introduce the leading tone. So for example, I use the dominant chord, so the one which is built on the harmonic minor scale, and at this point, I could say I break this tonal ambiguity, and it immediately it becomes I have a very strong tonal sense. So for example, let's try this. And now, so in the first part of this succession of chords, I have something which is weaker, a very weak tonal sense, something we say a tonal ambiguity. But then, if I at a certain point, if I use this chord, this dominant chord, so which has, of course, the leading tone. Now I have a strong tonal sense. So what it is very important is that I can switch from between the different scales. So this is the essential thing that we have to understand now. Up to now we have seen that we can build the different chords in the natural minor scale, in the harmonic minor scale. So why to use one, why to use the other for the strong tonal sense or a weak tonal sense. So we divided it in different parts. So tonal, strong tonal sense, harmonic minor scale, tonal ambiguity or tonal weaker tonal sense, natural minor scale. But everything we learn, when we learn these things, we have not to be forced to use only one scale. So music is something, it is not a science, it is something artistic. So when I start composing, I don't have to think, oh, I will only use the natural minor scale, or I will only use the harmonic minor scale. But depending on each musical situation, I mean in the same song, I can switch from, for example, the natural minor scale to the harmonic minor scale, and of course vice versa. So I can switch from one minor scale to another. So depending on which kind of atmosphere, so strong tonal sense or strong tonal ambiguity, which kind of atmosphere do I need in that moment, so I can switch from one to another. And this is something very important, because I can mix all these different chords. I can have, for example, before one chord built on the natural minor scale and then a chord built on the harmonic minor scale. I can mix, because in this way I will have, as I said before in the previous video lesson, in this way I will have a higher number of tools. I will achieve a greater variety, because you understand very well that if in a certain moment I will use this E minor chord, then I go on, of course, and then in a second moment I use it a major E major minor chord. I have in the same song, I mean passing in a succession of chords, I will have a great variety, only switching from one minor scale to another. So in the next video we will take a look at something very important. We will see a very common use, a very important example of how to put into practice everything we learn now. We will take a look at a very famous song, which it is not one of the most songs. It is quite famous, or maybe it is one song or one famous group. It was very famous during the 80s, and we will see how to switch from one scale to another, so to achieve a great variety.